It's like
Done. So
fancy
fancy.
and stuff. Wow.
What the heck?
Man, it's like I feel special. And
Well,
just to let
you guys
everyone
are
know,
special, that's for
oh,
sure.
thank you. Just to let everyone know that we're in the keynote. So Shafina, you can close your ears now. That I have updated the at the very bottom resources section of my post with the slides from the keynote. And that, friends, is also where we will place the slides for this session. But we'll also have a nice special link there at the bottom of our slides to get you there so you can get the slides for this as well as some resources that we'll be talking about. Yay, everyone. Welcome to the session Enabling Your Teams with Microsoft List. And I'm Daniel, and that's Shafina, and we'll introduce ourselves here in a second. But first off, let's talk about the agenda. We're going to do a quick intro to what is Microsoft List so we're all on the same page, making sure that we understand what the technology is. And then how does it help us to create and share and track information? We're going to cover that. Rules for and quick edits, and how does that factor into usability? How do we customize our list? And then we're going to have this nice real world demo at the end. And we're also going to have demo all in there in between too. So hopefully that's what you came for, with figuring out how you can use this technology for your team. Just as an introduction, my name is Daniel Glenn. I am the collaboration practice lead for InfoWorks, and I do have a podcast. I mentioned it a couple times in the keynote, but go to 365mcs.com or messagecenter.show, just two different URLs to get you to the same place to subscribe to that podcast, whether it's a audio or video, and link up with me at Daniel Glenn on Twitter. And introducing my wonderful co-speaker, Shafina.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And thank you everyone for joining us today. As Daniel mentioned, I'm Shafina Hassam. I am the manager for the Modern Workplace at BDO Canada. And so for those of you who didn't figure it out, I am Canadian. And if you want to just analyze the way Daniel and I speak, you'll easily be able to identify that I am Canadian versus Daniel, who is more of a Southerner. And I'm also a Microsoft MVP, but most notably over the last year and a half, or however long we've been stuck at home, I have mastered the art of commuting to my desk from my bed. On a really good day, it takes me about 4.5 big steps to get to my desk. So I'm extremely proud of my accomplishment. So round of applause for me. Thank you very much. And feel free to connect with me on Twitter. And more recently, I use LinkedIn a lot. So absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to message me or send me an email if you have further questions. And without further ado, we must get into our presentation. So we're going to start with just, kind of like building that foundational knowledge of lists. But, why would we want to use Microsoft Lists? Well, we all collaborate with information, right? We're always storing information, creating information, reading information, we're searching for it. In fact, according to some of Microsoft's research, 98% of us actually collaborate with more than one colleague in a day. So that kind of means that we're actually storing more information than we think. The minute we're sharing information, we're actually storing it and collaborating with someone else. Another very interesting stat is that 28% of your day is actually spent creating information, searching for information. So, you're spending your day collaborating, but then you're also spending the other part of your day just creating information. So that's a lot of time just dealing with information. Now, if we start to think about lists, I'm going to show you like a real life example near the end of this, but I'm going to show you some really quick tips in terms of how these lists can actually start to save time. And so according to Microsoft, 4 hours of your day can be saved if you start to improve the way that you collaborate and share information. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to save 4 hours in your week, but you know, I might save you 4 minutes in a day or a little bit more, depending on how much you get out of this session. So let's go to the next slide here. I'm just going to give you a quick overview on the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, because there's so many products being thrown at us all day. I mean, doesn't it feel like there's a Microsoft Ignite conference every month or something, and there's new announcements all the time? I think Daniel goes through new announcements every week. So you can imagine that this ecosystem is crazy, but we're just going to simplify it for today. So the very first thing is identifying content, right? So if you think of Microsoft Teams at the center of this ecosystem, because Teams, rah, 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 you'll think about content in terms of SharePoint and OneDrive, right? So that's where we access our files from anywhere, anytime, and we can start to track a lot of our content through SharePoint and OneDrive. And then we go on to the next one, which is managing our tasks. So we manage tasks in To-Do a lot, most of us. If you don't, you should, or you could. And we also, you know, we're starting to manage tasks with our teams using Planner. Now, there's obviously other task management tools, but you know, if we're just looking at this ecosystem in a really simplistic way, that's what we're doing. The next one is communicating. You know, the predominant method of communication is still a lot of Outlook. You know, it can be Teams, but we still go to Outlook for many, many things, especially for scheduling meetings and attending meetings and just, you know, checking up on other people's calendars and stuff. So there's still a lot of work that we do in Outlook. So that's definitely not going away. But the last thing I want to do is talk about information and managing information in a specific workflow, and really start to organize your information by the ability of tracking with rules, views, and starting to drive insights with conditional formatting and really making things look pretty so they pop, because now we just really like things to look nice, right? I think. What do you think, Daniel? You're on mute. You're on mute. I won't have a conversation with you.
My button is not working. I have a button to unmute. Yeah, it's not. Well, now it works. Yes, I do like things to be pretty. Sure.
Okay, great.
How's that?
So the next slide is just going to show you, I'm going to quickly show you that we're going to talk about 3 things about lists. Like, I'm not here to sell you on lists, but I'm hoping I do sell you on them. It's kind of the objective that I want to get through. But essentially, lists have 3 main awesome features. They're simple, they're smart, and they're flexible. They're simple because really anyone can create a list. They're smart because they make you look smart in the way that you're going to use these lists. And then they're actually flexible. You can really extend these lists into so much more. So I don't know what Daniel's doing, but I think those are just really the 3 key topics here. So let's jump into the first topic, which is simple. So lists are easy, they're simple, you can create them, you can track lists with anyone on any device. And if we go to the next slide here, you know, in terms of creating new lists, it's so easy. You can go to the lists app, you can do it, you can import an Excel sheet that you're currently working on, you can add a list from Teams, you can add a list from SharePoint. I'm sure there's many more other places and locations to create lists from, but those are the main ones. And you can instantly start tracking these lists. You can configure your views, which we will actually go into and show you as well. But the biggest thing here is that you have ready-made templates. So if we go to the next slide, Microsoft's actually made it even more simple for you, because when you create a new list, you actually get ready-made templates. So Microsoft's basically said these are the, you know, the top reasons that people would want to track information in pretty much any organization. So tracking issues, onboarding an employee, managing an event, any type of event, scheduling content, really keeping track of anything. So Microsoft's given you these ready-made templates, and now you can actually create templates for your entire organization. So, you know, if you guys have a specific thing that you need to track within an organization, every department tracks this, and you want to keep it consistent across your organization, you can start to create organization templates. So really, really cool feature. And the last thing, of course, is to the next slide. You can actually start to use your list from within Microsoft Teams. So instead of just always going to the Microsoft List app to do things, bringing these lists into Teams is really how you're going to enable your teams to be more productive, more efficient. There's added functionality when you actually bring your list into Teams, which we'll show you. But yeah, you can share lists and you can share individual items. Like, what a big change. For those of you in today's session who've used lists in the old SharePoint and now use lists in its modern way, it's just such a breath of fresh air. So I'm really happy. And now we get to jump into a demo with Daniel Glenn. You're on mute, Daniel. You're actually
No,
on
I'm
mute.
not. I am not on mute. I don't know what you're talking about. You keep saying things. Okay. So we are going to demo, and I'm going to just jump out there. We're going to demo what is the Microsoft Lists home? How do we work with it? How do we manage it? So let's talk about this. First of all, let's go to home. Let's go to office.com. And we're on office.com, and in our app launcher, we can go and find lists. Now, if it's not there, you can click on all apps and find lists that way. Okay. So here's Microsoft Lists. It is pretty simple. The site is pretty simple. We have the search, of course, like Microsoft 365 search to find everything. We have the ability to create a new list straight from here. Shafina was talking about all the wonderful places that we get to create list from. Well, this is one. You can come to the actual app and create a list from here. Then we have our favorites. You can mark any of your lists that you've used as a favorite. These are a recent list here down below where we can mark those as favorite, and it will show up in our favorite section, because you can think about, this is my demo tenant, right? Most of you have bunches and bunches of lists, right, throughout all of your sites, because these lists live in SharePoint, but they also actually live in OneDrive, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, how do you create a list? Well, you click that button that says create a list. So you could start with a blank list, and that's going to be blank, and it'll create a list, and then you'll build it out from there. You can start from Excel, and Shafina kind of mentioned this before, but you can import from Excel and really get started with the data you already have. You can copy from an existing list, and this is really going to copy those columns for you and get you started. So if maybe you're using a list that's the same on every site, or there's a list out there, yes, I want to use that formatting, those columns and everything, that's what I want to do. You can copy it from an existing one. You can also start from a template. You can start from a template from Microsoft, or you can actually publish list templates for your organization. So let's start off with a template, and you can pick any of these. You're not committed, because once you go to and you pick one, then it shows you what it's going to look like. Now, it doesn't come with data, but this is what it will look like with data. And you could actually scroll up on the left-hand side and go through these and say, okay, which one of these closely matches what I want to do with this. So let's do maybe event itinerary. Does that sound good? Okay, great.
What kind of event are we going to be organizing?
I don't know. Maybe it should be an event where we actually get together in person. But I digress. That'd be great if all of us could actually be in person and see each other, right?
You're teasing me.
Yeah. All right. So let's use this template. We name the template. Now we want to give it a good name, not what the default name is, because then all of your items that you create, all the lists that you create, are going to be called event itinerary if this is the template. So we're going to do, what are we going to call this? A wonderful in-person event. You could give a description. This is a great way to kind of let people know what this list is about. Let's give it a color and an icon. We're going to do airplane, because we're going to fly together and meet somewhere, right? It's in person. Now, here's the important bit that I wanted to get to, is this save to location. The default is my lists. That is OneDrive. That is your personal OneDrive. And so it'll save it there. Only you have access to this until you share it. So just know that means OneDrive. Or recent sites, these are SharePoint sites, right? So let's pick new intranet. I don't know. We're going to do an in-person event discussing our new intranet. All right. So I'm going to click create. And then voila, here's my list. I'm still in the Microsoft List app and the web app here, but this is actually stored on that SharePoint site, which is connected to my team. So
does that mean, Daniel, that everyone who has access to that SharePoint site and that team has access to this list?
That's exactly what this means,
okay.
Shafina. Everyone that has access to that team site in SharePoint has access to this list. So I can come in here and start adding things. Yes. So I can, create new, click new. It gives me my wonderful form that is kind of maybe a little ugly. And we'll talk about how we can change that in a little bit. But here's all my stuff. I could favorites this list. So it shows up in my favorites list over there in the list app. I can do all the wonderful things it's a SharePoint list, right? One fancy thing that we do have now is we are able to go in and edit the column and format the column and, well, no, I'm sorry, not format. We're able to edit this column, the settings of this column, to make it more helpful to us by enabling rich text. This is something new this month. We're able to enable rich text, meaning we're going to be able to do underlining and bolding and hyperlinks and tables and pictures all within this column of this list. Now, there is some gotchas here of way you manage list in this rich text. We talked about that on the Message Center, so go back and check that out. Don't have time today to do that, but here is our list. That's great, Daniel. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. But what you may be thinking now is, I don't want to have to consume this list in the Microsoft list. Where can I get to this? It's a very good question. Let's go over to Teams, shall we? We can add that list. I'm in the new intranet team. I can add that list by clicking on Teams. I'm adding the tab. And then it's going to ask me, do I want to create a new list? Hey, this is another place where we can create a list. As Shafina was talking about, many places you will go to create a list. We can create one here, or we can add an existing list. Here's that wonderful in-person event. I click it, it's added, voila. You can, it meets you where you're working, which is in Microsoft Teams, right? So that is how we can get our list created using a template, saved to a Teams site, and added to our Microsoft Teams channel where we all do our work. Awesome.
Awesome. I think it feels a little creepy that, you just created a list in the list app and now I go to Teams and that same list is there. Like, Daniel, have you ever had a conversation on the phone and talking about a specific topic and then you go to YouTube and all of a sudden YouTube's showing you a video on that exact same conversation?
Yes, I actually did have that happen once. I had a conversation about a movie. It was some off-the-wall movie that had never talked about, never done any searches for whatsoever. And then I went on to my Roku and into Amazon Prime Video, and it was the recommended movie.
Yeah.
What?
So that happened. For those of you, I know this has nothing to do with lists, but for those of you who have an iPhone, you go to the YouTube app and switch off the microphone because YouTube's actually listening to you. So just a little tip for you guys. Okay.
Uh-oh. What? Hold on.
Hopefully
you keep going. I got something to do. You keep going.
Okay, and before we jump into that, I just want to read the chat here. So Saritha's asking, we can customize it like any other custom list, right? Does it matter because it's a template?
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. It's just a starting point. Those templates just get you going. And from then on out, it's yours, just like any other list.
Amazing. And please keep the questions coming. We have a nice group here where we have the ability to have these interruptions and questions and keep it going. So on to smart. So why are lists so smart? You know, we talked about how they're so simple. Daniel showed you how simple it is to create them and get started. But now once you actually have your data in the list, it's so smart. You actually don't need to do much, you know, compared to when lists were first created 20 years ago. Yes, lists are actually 20 years old. For those of you who didn't know, this is not a new Microsoft product. They're 20 years old. They never used to be this smart, but now they just got a whole lot smarter. So some quick things in terms of how they actually are smarter than they used to. Well, you have the ability to quick edit things. You can bulk edit operations. So we'll show you that. But, you know, basically, if you've got 100 rows that you need to input information into, you can easily do that with quick edit and bulk editing information. There's two different ways to do that. You can also then add some conditional formatting. So similar to Excel, you know how you've got the conditional formatting, you also have the ability to do that. Conditional formatting is just saying that if a value equals this, turn it this color or make it look like this, or, you know, make it pop so people can see that really easily. And Daniel is not focused on the deck, but and the last thing in terms of making it smarter is that you can actually dictate some rules and create some notifications, keep everyone informed. Your teams are not going to have lists open all the time and refreshing it to see what's happened and what's new and what's changed. So create rules for people to get a notification that this particular individual updated this item. This is what changed. Think about when you're managing an Excel file. Fine, everyone has access to the same file. You're always using the same up-to-date version, but how do you know which cell changed or who changed what or what's different? It's so difficult. So this is where the smartness of Microsoft Lists come into play. On to the next slide. Okay, so using rules and notifications is what I just spoke about really easily, but you know, out of the box, it's really easy to set up some high-level notifications, right? Someone created an item, someone modified an item, someone deleted an item. You can actually create notifications for other people as well if you're really the one driving the management of this list. There are also additional ways to create specific workflows using Power Automate. But out of the box, you don't need any Power Automate knowledge at all. You can simply just go in and start to create yourself some rules. Awesome, awesome. So we're going to jump into Daniel, who's going to show you, you know, the couple of items here that I spoke about in terms of how smart lists are. But before we do, I'm just going to answer Lynette's question here, or Daniel, I'm going to ask you to answer Lynette's question. So the question is, can you move a list that you saved from your list into a team?
No.
Sorry, Lynette.
Was I supposed to?
There's no thumbs down, unfortunately, in Teams.
Yeah, so you can do some, you know, exporting the data and then importing it, but that's data. It is not, you know, the formatting and rules and all of that. So when you make a choice on where you're saving that list, that's where it's going to be. And it's so with Microsoft Lists, you know, it's those lists. It's a SharePoint list, right? So it's the same kind of rules that we have for a SharePoint list for now. That hasn't changed. Yep. Okay, so let's go back to our list. Well, let's go find a, you know, maybe a, uh-oh, that's not what I want to do.
That's SharePoint.
You're so helpful. Okay, let's go to, let's pick a different list so we can highlight how we're going to do some of these. So quick edits, it really is quick, right? We're able to go and say, I want to take these 3 items and I want to be able to change all 3 items at the same time. So I could come in and say, I'm going to change any of these values and it will change those 3 items all at the same time. Fast, easy. I love it because you can also filter your list based upon whatever it is and change all of those items in that filtered list the same way. So it really is quick. We also have grid view. This is that data sheet view that we've used so many times in SharePoint Classic way back when. Same thing. We're able to, select multiple cells. We're able to copy, but we're also able to paste new items in to a list. So the grid view is your friend when doing that. And I just realized, you may not know, I have my screen over here as my demo, so that's why I keep looking over here. So sorry if I'm distracting you that way. Okay.
Yeah, I was a little offended actually, but thanks for clarifying.
I don't really care. All right. So we go to, I also want to show conditional formatting. So let's look at the client type. And I want to really get an idea, how can I, or let's see, how can we, which one do we want to do? I'm not seeing. There we go. Let's do relationship start. We can format this column with different options here. Format, we could do dates, right? And depending upon the date, it will give us formatting. We can also do conditional formatting. This is where we can say things like, if the date is before this date, make it this color. If it's after this date, make it this color. We could, do those very similar to Excel, the way we work in Excel. We could also format the view, alternating rows, which just gives us that kind of breakup of the rows so it's not so boring. And then again, the conditional formatting gives us that ability to say, how do we want to, and really we can build this out with rules that are custom for us. It is not a, oh, you have to have it, green, yellow, red kind of thing. You can format these the way you want it to be formatted. Right. So you can, it's the same thing for styles, how you want to format the styles. You can do that easily there as well. Cool. That's my demo.
Awesome. There's a question here. Joel has a really interesting question, and I want to understand a little bit more about it. But basically, Joel's asking, do you have a trick on how you can create 20 blank rows all at one time versus creating them one at a time?
Yeah, my question would be, why are you creating 20 blank rows? I mean, what's the use case? If you mean I want to paste 20 rows in there at once, you can do that. You don't need blank rows in there initially to do that. To start, pasting in if you're in grid view, you can go ahead and do that. But no, there's not really a way to start off with 20 blank items.
Yeah. And especially if you have columns that require information, you absolutely won't be able to create blank rows at all. You can't hack that, unfortunately.
No hacking.
No hacking.
Yeah.
But Joel, feel free to give us, a little bit more context, and hopefully we can help you. All right, let's go into talking about why lists are so flexible. There we go. So you'll see that we covered that lists are simple. They're also very smart. We kind of showed you at a high level, and now we're going to talk about how they're actually flexible. So once you actually decide to get your data into a list and you've started to make it look pretty and actually drive some value by the formatting, you can start to create some flexibility with it. But the very first reason that we consider lists to be flexible is that you can actually have access to it on your mobile app. Now, why is this so important? Because it's really difficult to actually open an Excel file on your mobile. I mean, it's easy to open, but it's very difficult to scroll and update and make things happen. So if you think about use cases where you have people at an office who are trying to share information and keep a status updated with users who are out in the field. So whether they're your sales team or they're on a retail floor, or they're just people who are on the road very often, the ability to have access to this mobile app and access to all their lists that they need access to really quickly and seamlessly is really cool. Unfortunately, the Android app is not yet available, so I would recommend that your salespeople or your field people have iOS devices.
Coming February.
It's coming soon, but yeah, so this is exactly one of the reasons why it's flexible. Another reason that it's flexible is because that you actually have the ability to add Microsoft Lists as an app on your desktop. So earlier, Daniel showed us how to access lists from the app launcher and from Teams. But let's say, as an example, you just want to have Microsoft Lists as an app, because we all love apps and we have plenty of apps in our life, and who needs to reduce the number of apps? We need more apps. But you definitely have access to an app. And, I haven't noticed any additional functionality from the desktop app as opposed to accessing from the web browser, but I'm sure, over time there will be improvements made to it, unless Daniel knows of something that I don't. No, yeah. Is there any difference between the desktop app and the web version?
I just did a video this week on the desktop app and how it functions, but the short answer is no. There is one big, huge benefit, and we list it there. It's offline access to your lists. So being able to work with your list and then sync them to the list service.
Right. Yep. Right. You're absolutely right. Okay, there you go. See, offline access, so important, especially for field workers who all of a sudden lose data connection. Okay, the next thing in terms of your lists being flexible is that you can personalize them. So changing the views, changing the way information appears depending on people, what their needs are. Sometimes you have managers who just need to see quick charts and graphs in terms of the progress of things, right? So demonstrating the status of things in colors, you can do that. You can just remove some columns, hide some columns from a filtered view, sort them differently, group the views differently so that they make sense for whoever's accessing the particular list. But out of the box, by default, you'll get a calendar view. So you have the ability to flip it to view in a calendar format. So it's pretty amazing. You can change it to view in the grid format, which is what we're pretty used to. And then the gallery format. I haven't seen a lot of people use the gallery format, but there's a lot of really nice ways to display information, especially if you have thumbnails of your items. It starts to really, make your list look a lot prettier. And honestly, it doesn't take a lot of work at all. It's really just flipping a view. And so we'll actually show you that. But in terms of flexibility, you can then start to extend the flexibility of this. Oh, wait, did I forget to talk about something? I did. That's why he didn't change the slide for me. So I forgot to mention that when you start to personalize your lists, so you've added some conditional formatting, you've changed the filters, you've created lists, views, and everything, you can actually start to create headers and footers on your forms. So I don't know if you've ever used lists in the older version, but it was really difficult to change the way that the input form looked. And it was really difficult for users to understand the purpose of the form, to understand, what certain fields meant, to add more context to the information that people are inputting. You can really start to customize the form so that it actually serves as a training platform almost to help users fill in the form more accurately. So now we can go on to extending the flexibility of your list. So, not only do lists have the ability to integrate with Excel, they integrate with SharePoint, but the Power Platform is really why you want to start to use lists, because you can start to extend your list into so many different ways, into so many different workflows and processes. You can start to use the Power Platform really heavily, and then at the end of the day, translate everything into Power BI so that your managers are happy and you can see everything. So I think I covered everything, but if I didn't, Daniel, feel free to add in something. But Daniel, we also have a question here.
Yep.
When you're doing this demo, Sydney would like to see if you can demo sorting things in the gallery view. Is that correct, Sydney? Demo sorting in gallery view.
Yeah. So gallery requires photos. I mean, really, and I don't have a demo set up to do that. I will look into doing that while Shafina talks through her extended demo, and maybe she'll talk slowly, although I'm not sure she's capable of doing that. But maybe she will, and I could maybe put together a demo for that. Okay.
Sorry if I speak fast. I get so excited.
We'll quit doing that.
Because today Microsoft List is my favorite Microsoft 365 app, and so I'm super excited about it, and so I keep talking really fast.
Okay, so stop doing that. I'm just joking. You're fine. You're great.
Okay.
All right, let's first off, I was going to show my demo of the mobile app. So bear with me and I will pull that up. I'm going to connect my phone to my computer and then share my screen.
Oh, Jackie has a really great question. I won't derail you just yet, but
Don't derail me at all. I don't like
I'm not
derailing.
going to derail you.
All right. It is. Oh, here it comes. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. All right. So here's my phone. It really is my phone. Oh, it's got enough charge. That's great. All right. So this is the iOS Microsoft List app. It should look very familiar because we looked at the list site earlier and we have our favorites at the top, we have our recent list at the bottom, and we have this big, huge plus sign at the bottom middle. That is, you guessed it, ability to create a list based on template. You aren't able to import from Excel here or copy another list, which is a little bit unfortunate, but we're able to do the other options. And yes, we can open up any list here on the mobile and work with the list, making sure that we, make any changes. And we can do that right here. So we can view any of these items and make any updates that we want. Okay, so yay. So the mobile app is fantastic on iOS. There was a mention that you can use List as long as it's been added to a team on Android because you're in Teams, so you can use List there as well. So I will disconnect my phone for now. Excuse me. And then let's look at the desktop app. So I talked about, I did that video, so you can go out on my YouTube and see that, but or on my website, I did a blog post about it as well. But when you go and install the List app on your desktop or laptop, right, then you get access to your list. See, it's the same view. It's a progressive web app. So it is actually the same functionality you get on the web, but in an app. So you don't have to bring up a browser. You can just get to it straight away in your app. But you can also, you'll see this wonderful button here, a refresh button, that is to manually make it refresh, to sync the list information to your machine. So we're able to open up the same lists, make edits, and do that same functionality that we would online. Okay, so we talked about the desktop app. I wanted to highlight it here for you. All right, let's get to our do the rest of the demo here. So how do we talked about customizing, Shafina mentioned customizing the form to make it a little bit more easier for your users to get it, because let's look at this. All right, here's our form for this list, and you know this, when you create a list, the form, the entry form, is built out with the columns based upon the when the column was added. So the order you add them is the order it's put on here. Now you can go in and update views, but this is the default of the way it is. So I can go and edit this and great, but what if I want to move these around, right? What if I want to group these in a better way? If I add, for instance, a relationship stop column for this list, it's going to put it at the bottom. Well, what if I wanted to put that together with the relationship start one? So the way you do that, customize a form, you open up an item, and then you go to configure layout. This is where we get the option to not only move our columns around and group them, which is awesome. We can format them in this view, which is great, but we also have access to the header and to the footer. Now, what's great about the header? Well, this isn't just, I want to underline the name of the item. We can insert icons, we can insert not just the title, which is right here, media technology. We can actually insert more information up here in the header if we wanted to. We can do that all using JSON, which is code, by the way. Anyone who tells you JSON is not code is not good for you, and you need to remove them from your life because they're lying to you. Maybe not that harsh, but at least just tell them, no, I don't agree with you. Also, the footer. The footer will give us, information in a footer, so at the bottom. But I like to use this for contact information, maybe who created this item, or so I can get a quick chat with them or send them an email, or maybe it's the help desk link, a link to the person who owns this list, to say, oh, maybe we need to add a new column. Who do I need to contact to modify this list? We can add that in the footer and make it available, make that link there available so everyone knows who to contact. And we're going to get a good demo of this with Shafina here in just a few moments. So I'm not going to go into a demo here on doing it because she's going to do it here shortly. So just get ready for an awesome demo. Last thing. What?
Oh, are you done? Sorry, are you done, Daniel?
No.
No? Okay. When you're done, let me know.
You would think maybe we should practice this presentation again. No, I'm not done. There's one more thing I'm going to show, which is the ability to visualize our list in Power BI. Yes, we do have integration options. Shafina mentioned we have Power Apps, Power Automate, but also Power BI. We can go and visualize this list. And when we do, Power BI does its magic and says, I'm going to look at your list and take the data and I'm going to create some visualizations for you. Voila, I'm visualizing my list using Microsoft Power BI Insights. So I'm able to view it. Fantastic. Every user in your organization can do this, right? So everybody can do this. You don't need a Power BI license to do this. Everyone can go visualize their list in Power BI. Isn't that awesome? Thumbs up. Can we get some claps?
I think it's pretty amazing. Like, if you want to look like a superstar in front of your manager, this is how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at all those claps. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
overwhelming claps. Love the claps. So, but that's great, Daniel. I'm able to visualize this. Can I edit it? Of course you can edit if you have a Power BI Pro license. Now we're getting into licensing. So yes, it is great. You're able to visualize this. It's wonderful. Can you edit it and make it a report? You absolutely can with a Power BI Pro license, because that's what you need. Use the service. But I can publish this to the list. So I'm going to name this report as, let's just, Power BI default. That sounds great. So currently there's no report. So now it's saying report saved, it's been published. So when I go back to the list and go to integrate, check that out. There's my report. So I could have edited it. I could have edited it, made it, reflect the way I wanted it to be. Some pie charts. I love pie charts. There are many, many people who hate pie charts, but I think if you use them correctly, they can be fantastic. Anyway, I digress. But there's my report. So I can click it and get to it. Not only can I click it, but anyone with a Power BI Pro license can click it and get to this chart. Okay. So if you don't know, the secret to Power BI licensing is when you get past the threshold of sharing. So you're using it yourself, you don't need a license, okay? But when you are sharing, which is when you publish to the list, or when you're using the list and you go view this report, that's sharing, whether you're receiving or doing the sharing, you need a license, a Power BI Pro license, okay? So that's awesome. We're able to view that and view and you can have many reports here, right? It's not just one. Think about, having a list that's huge. You can be slicing up having a report based upon the data here. So if you have your thousands and thousands of rows, you can analyze it very easy. There is a question there from Danielle. Can you embed that report? Absolutely not. Nope, you cannot do that. That is a barrier. I very much, I've given this feedback. I would love to share that report, meaning I would like to take that report. So this report that we've created that's available on the list, I would love to take this report and then put it on the team site homepage, because this list is on the team site. Everyone has a license on this that's a member of this team. I want to put it on the team home site or maybe a separate page for reports and show that information. Unfortunately, you cannot. It is a barrier, and it is not something you can do. Now,
But I like Sydney's thinking. She's thinking
well,
out of the box
I bet
here.
you do. I bet you, yeah, she's thinking outside of the box. You know, Sydney's the type of person that, no, I won't do that. Yes, you most certainly can. Take a screenshot of this, and you can also print it here. And so if you go to print, you can print it to whatever, whether it's a physical print or a PDF, and have that report available. So you can take a screenshot and put it on a page, especially if it's information that's not updated very often, or maybe you just need to report on it every week or something. So, and you can do that with any report, Power BI report. So
could you create a flow that every time the Power BI graph is updated, it prints it and emails it to your manager?
yeah, absolutely not. So you can't do that because, again, this report for this list it's really embedded in this list. It is not, it's utilizing the Power BI service, but it is not Power BI full. So we're not able to integrate with it with other tools.
Okay.
Thank you, Sydney and Shafina, for you trying to get around the system. It's built in. You're right. You can print it, screenshot it, whatever you need to do. So,
okay. And sorry, before you exit out of this, Jackie has a question, and I'm pretty sure that the answer is no, but Microsoft may have made some updates. But can you do conditional formatting for a calendar view? And like back in the day, we could do overlays of calendars, so you could color code specific views and have it all look really, really pretty. Do you have that ability in Microsoft Lists yet?
Trying to remember. I'm trying to get you an answer as I speak. I know it has color coding in a calendar view, but
I don't believe so. I mean, it never used to, but has it been an update?
I know there's color coding, but it's not like different colors is what I'm trying to figure out. I'll try to get an answer to that. But I know it does color coding based upon the template, the site coloring. So I'll need to figure that out. Okay, I'll try to get an answer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I don't see that, but
I don't either.
actually has another question too. So can you make the list as a data source for a BI dashboard?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can use regular Power BI to point to this list and then have all the powers of Power BI bestowed upon you.
Yeah. Adam, I love the way you think as well. And actually today I read a blog post, someone posted on LinkedIn, a blog post about, at what point do you take Microsoft List data and start to think of the true data source, and how do you extend that into perhaps the Dataverse or wherever you need to extend that?
This is not the be all end all for every solution, nor is anything else in the Microsoft 365 spectrum. But it does have its use cases, many use cases. And it does actually is getting even better. There's some formatting just released, and we don't have a demo for it today, but just released, where you can do things where interactive on your list, where you can come in and say, you can have a column that's take action, and one could be I approve or deny, and do it right here on the list, like approve, and then it'll switch columns over here to say approved and denied by and all that. So some really cool solutions that you can create with Microsoft List. I digress.
Awesome.
So now I will do this, but only very shortly, because I am going to slip to this slide so Shafina can talk about demo, and then she's going to take over and do some amazing demo.
I am going to take over. You know, we are 50 minutes into this presentation, but now is really when we start. So fasten your seatbelts. We're going to go through a real life demo right now. So we've talked about how you can create lists and everything, but we all are way too busy to sit and start with a blank canvas and figure out how we're going to use this list, right? So I'm going to show you the exact steps for taking an existing Excel spreadsheet. And basically the use case is that we're working in an organization. And so we have people who are working in the office. They've created this tracking spreadsheet. They have consultants who are working out in the field. They go out into this field and they kind of assess different blocks out in the world. And so they are different consultants that need to contribute information to this list to say, hey, where's my slide? To say, hey, what are all the different updates in terms of this block, right? So you've got different people from all over the place updating an Excel spreadsheet, but now we're going to actually turn that into a Microsoft list. So I'm going to share my screen now, if you don't mind. I'm going to pull up this Excel
Get her
spreadsheet.
done.
Doing it. All right, can you see my Excel spreadsheet?
Indeed, we can.
Awesome. So this is the exact spreadsheet that we're currently using. You'll see that there's a column here that describes the name of the block that's being surveyed out in the world. You've got the status of the block. You've got the year, the consultant name, and then some values in terms of the actual block dimensions. And you'll see up at the top here, we've got different sections of information that just allow people to read the information a little better. So it's not a complex spreadsheet, but what I'm trying to demonstrate to you is that there's a lot of information here. So you can imagine manually inputting this into a list would be just a little bit too much work. We don't want to bring in all this data. For the demo today, we'll just bring in the information from block info and consultation down. So the first thing you do need to do is go into your Excel spreadsheet. And you'll see here that I've got my filters on. So you want to make sure that you turn those filters off. So we're going to go to data and we're going to turn the filters off. The next thing you're going to do is you want to select the cells that you actually want to import into Microsoft Lists. So for today's demo, we're going to select columns C all the way to L and down. So I'll just highlight those. Okay. And now I'm going to convert that into a table. So I'm going to give that table a name. So go up to home and I'm going to format this as a table. Select whatever formatting you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't go into Excel in that particular format. So I'm just going to select this as a format. And Microsoft Excel is saying, hey, is this right? This is what you want to format? Yep. I want to make sure my table headers come in so that all my column rows are all imported as well. So I'm going to hit OK. So now you'll see in this particular spreadsheet that the cells that I selected have turned colors. So now I know this is my table that I formatted. Up in the top left corner, you can also assign a name to your table so that in Microsoft Lists, you can also select the correct table that you want to import. So what you're going to do now is save this, and then you're going to import this into OneDrive. You want to make sure that this is actually in OneDrive. You can upload it from your desktop, but sometimes it doesn't work as well. So I just recommend you do that first, upload it into OneDrive. So now I'm going to open up my lists app here. So you'll see that I'm in my lists app, create a new list. I'm going to go a little fast because you've kind of seen all this. But now I'm going to actually select import this list from Excel. So here you'll see that you're prompted to upload an Excel file from OneDrive. If you haven't done that, it'll allow you to do so directly in this window. But actually, I'm going to show you what you can do from here. If you select upload file, and let's say we want to upload this file. Oh, I may have to close it. Yeah, sorry, 1 second. Let's close that. Let's upload it. So let's say we've uploaded this file. So now Microsoft List has identified that table 1, which is the table that I named in Excel. Contains this information. I have the ability to check that. But if I hadn't formatted this table, it would actually prompt me and walk me through the steps to go through that formatting stage. So you don't have to worry if you don't do that in advance. But I'm just letting you know that's what you're going to need to do. So Once you import this particular table into into Microsoft Lists, the next step is for you to confirm that the actual column types are correct. So when we talk about column types, you'll see that block ID, Microsoft List is interpreting this as the title column. So you can actually change this. If you don't want it to be the title, it can be a single line of text, multiple choice, or just don't even import it at all. I'm going to keep this as the title column, because why I want this to be the title column is because when I want people to go into the list, I want them to click on that column to view the entire form. So you can decide which one you want to be the title column, because that's where you'll have all the commands and the ability to actually expand the form in Microsoft Lists. So the next one here is the status column. So you'll see that the status column has, the ability to change the status of the block. Right now, it's being dictated as a single line of text, but I actually want to convert that into a choice field so that it's always consistent when users are inputting information. The next one is a number column. So I'm going to leave that as a number column. I think that's a good choice there. But because it is a year, you could also choose to change that to a choice column. So if you wanted people to maintain consistency in the years, the way that they're formatting the years, you can do that. I can change it to a choice. Even the consultant field, I want to change that to a choice field so that every time people are inputting the consultant's name, it's always consistent. And then we'll leave this column as a number, this column as a number, this column as a number. Continuing along, this one is going to be a choice column, and this one's going to be a choice column, and then the comments field I'm going to leave as a single line of text. So I did go through that really quickly, but I hope you got the the essence of what I'm showing you here. So now you'll see that it's trying to import this document according to some random URL or name or something, but today's demo is what we're going to be calling this, block schedule. And I'm not going to do a description. We're going to give it a nice purple color here. And then we're going to save this to a list. I'm going to save this to the sales and marketing team, which is actually a SharePoint site, which is actually a team as well. I'm going to say show in site navigation. So when people go to the SharePoint site, they'll actually see it in the navigation there as well. That does not mean the team's navigation. It's the SharePoint site navigation. And then we're going to hit create. And Daniel's laughing at me, but I've had people ask me that question. So now it's creating the list, and within seconds, literally, all that information that I showed you in Excel is now in Microsoft Lists. I think that's really cool. This is how we think Microsoft has made their list simple and smart. If you remember the presentation an hour ago, I talked about how simple and smart they are. This is exactly why. So now you'll see that all my information's been inputted. I scroll over. Feel free to go through your Excel file and do a quick audit if you don't trust it, but I trust it, so I'm not going to waste my time doing that. But now I want to add some color and life to this list, because that's really why we're using lists, or it's one of the reasons we're using lists. So over here, you'll see that the title column is named title, so I definitely want to change that. Back in the day, you'd have to go to the site gear, site actions, list settings, click on the column and update title of that column, and then save it and then refresh it, and it was just like this whole big thing. But now if I want to update the title of this column, I simply click on the title, column settings, and it actually has the option to rename it. So we're going to click on rename. And we're going to call it block ID. So we're going to click on save. So it instantly updated. I don't have to refresh. It's just like, whoa, super smart. And then we're going to go down the rest of these columns here. So they all look pretty good. I don't need to change them. The underscores are driving me a little crazy, but I'm not going to waste my time doing that. Consultant 2, I could probably change that, but for now, this is great. I like this. Okay. So now what do we want to do? We want to add some conditional formatting. There's multiple ways to add conditional formatting. If you're the type of person that wants to do conditional formatting for each column, you can do so by simply clicking on that particular column and going to the column settings and clicking on format this column. You could also, if you're just like, you want to look at everything all at once, you can click on the view over here on the right-hand side, and you can click on format the current view. So if you click on format current view, it's asking you, okay, do you want to actually format the view in its entirety, or do you want to format specific columns? So here you can choose the layout that you want to format, the list view or the gallery view. And then here under format columns, you can then specify which column you want to format. So let's say we want to format the block status column. So we're going to start with that. So we want to say that when a block status has changed to complete, we want to change that color. So out of the box, without knowing any code, you can do that. You have the ability to change the background color of the entire cell, or you can actually dictate the color of a pill that it would look like. It's kind of funny, pills, but you know, when you click on it, it immediately shows you what it would look like. So that's really what a pill is. This is what an entire cell would look like. And then this would actually sorry, I clicked on that. Oh, this would actually change the whole cell again. I don't know. I don't really get that. I'll figure it out. Okay, so let's go to the background colors. So now it's changed it to blue and yellow. Blue and yellow make no sense to me, so I'm going to edit the styles. Again, I don't need any code. But here is where you get to dictate the color conditional formatting, right? So if this column equals complete, I want it to be green because green means complete, I think, right?
It means go, actually.
It does mean go. But it means complete, like go ahead, we're done?
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
Okay. Now, if the status of the block equals cruise complete, then I'm going to make that blue. I don't know why. Just might make sense. But what you'll notice here is because I changed this column to equal a choice field, the list was actually smart enough to know that all of these are actual items in the choice menu. Like I didn't have to go and configure that. It automatically did it, which is really great, I think. So back to the color coding here. So if the status is on hold, we're going to keep it on yellow. I think that's a good thing. And then if the status is planned, it means red. Sure, we'll leave it at that. Okay, you can also go into an advanced mode and do more formatting. You can add little icons. You can do a lot of really cool stuff, but we're not going to go through that. I think the next session might go through a little bit more of the advanced items. So now we're going to hit save. And if I close out of this here, you'll see that immediately my colors have been applied and it's just like super simple to follow along. Sydney saying blue is for information, red is for red flag, green for go. The next app or project is good. Okay, yeah, I think we're good. I think this kind of means that. Yeah. Okay, the last thing I'm gonna go through one more conditional formatting step here just for this particular column. I'm gonna change the consultant to a pill. So if I go to column settings, format this column, and now I'm gonna format the consultant columns to be pills. And all that does is actually just really make all the different consultants pop. So, you know, if I wanted to just quickly see all the spectrum blocks that have been completed, I can see that. And then I can filter that. I can filter by the name and, you know, just a whole bunch of really cool stuff here. Okay, so I've done that. Next thing I'm going to do is now show you how to format the actual input form. So for those of you who don't know, right now, if I wanted to click on this particular block ID, because remember I dictated that as the title column. So now if I click on that, I can see a whole list here of all the fields. So if you look at this list right now, it looks kind of like not intuitive. It is intuitive, but it's hard to read. It's not really easy on the eye. So what I want to do is actually edit this form. Now, you can edit this form from this view here over on the right-hand side. You can click on configure the layout or edit the columns directly from this view. Or up in the left corner, when you click new to create a new item, you can also change the formatting from there as well. But again, you'll see that this input form, it doesn't really provide people with any context. You're not really helping people understand what's going on this form. Like, what does year dev mean? Like, who abbreviates year to year dev? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? So if you want to start to provide context and groupings and make it look a little bit cooler, you can do so. So over on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on edit form and I'm going to configure the layout. Now, back in the day, you would have to do this with InfoPath and SharePoint Designer and a whole bunch of different products that, you know, your IT team wouldn't let you do. And it was big. It was big. It was big. It was really big. But now what we get to do is actually use JSON, which is code. But I'm not a coder. I don't even know how to code, and I can still do this at a very high level. So over on the right-hand side, you're first going to select what you want to format, okay? So do you want to format the header of the form, the body, or the footer? So let's start with the header. So when I select the header, you'll see here right now the header just says new item. So, okay, that's fine. It means new item. But basically, I can actually dictate that to say, to give more context, to give it a header, to give whatever you need to do. So over here on the formatting panel, I can click on Learn More. This is my trick. I click on Learn More, and it actually opens up docs.microsoft.com, and it takes me to JSON that I can copy and paste. So if I scroll down here, you'll see that I can actually start to configure my custom header, and it gives you JSON to make your form look like this, to make your header look like this. Right now it says contact details for Monica Nyack. Obviously I'm going to change that to be more relevant to my form, but this is simply the JSON that I'm going to copy. So I click on the right hand side here, copies it to my clipboard, and I go back to the list, and all I'm going to do is Control V, and I'm going to paste that in here. Now there's a couple things you need to do, right? You need to go in here and change some of the titles. Obviously, make sure that it's pointing to the right columns that you want so that it can actually update the header accordingly. So I'm just going to check here, class M. There's nothing I need to change there. If you want to change the width of your border, your header, you want to change the colors, the formatting, you can do so. But don't ask me because I'm not very technical like that. So I'm going to keep scrolling down, and I'm just going to say, okay, I don't need to change any of that. I don't need to change that. I don't need to change that. Do I need to change that? No. Okay. Here, contact details for. This is what I want to change, because if I look back at this particular template here, you'll see that this title says contact details for Monica, but I don't want that to say that in my list. So I actually want it to say block information for, and then I wanted to reference the list to point to a specific block. So right now it's saying reference the title of this particular item, but I'm going to change that to block. What did I change it to? Block ID. So you'll see here that I'm referencing this particular field here, the very first field, so that it shows up in my header. And I think I did everything, right, Daniel? Did I do everything?
You may need to, that ID that you just put in there,
Yeah.
it may need to be block, because that block ID, it needs to reference the actual name of that. So it may need to be block with that whole spacing thing with that ID.
Okay, let's try this. Let's hit save. So
Yeah.
you see that's what it shows up as now. Let's cross out of that, and let's try this. And so you'll see that didn't work.
Right.
So what did I do?
That's the problem, is that ID. So my suggestion is just to pick a different, just put consultant or something, use the consultant field instead.
Well, that was a fail. I'm gonna try a different field here. I'm gonna click on save. Okay, so right now it's blank, obviously, because the consultant field is blank. But if I close out of that and I click on this particular item as an example, why isn't it showing me the consultant name? Something went wrong.
Let me look at the film. Yeah.
I was just about to tell you guys how easy this was.
It is easy.
It is easy, right? It's so simple. Okay, so that's the header, but you do see that the header did change. But essentially what I'm trying to do, is reference an existing field so that people know which form they're filling out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go to the body. So while Daniel helps me figure that out, now we're going to actually change the body so that the body has some groupings to it. So in Microsoft's Docs here, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for their JSON to edit the body. So if you scroll down, footer, this is the section for customizing the body with one or more sections. I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So in this screenshot here, you'll see that there is actually a grouping for details, and you can dictate which fields show up in there. And then there's another grouping for application, where there's a bunch of fields that you can choose there as well. So that's all I'm going to do is create some separation in my form. And so I'm going to scroll up here, and I'm going to select the right JSON. So below is the structure to get started for defining sections and referencing columns. And then this is an example of a custom body with sections. So all I'm going to do is copy this particular JSON here, go back to my new item, and paste that in. So now what I want to do is I just need to rename all of these columns to match the columns that I have. So again, I'm going to say display name is title, but so what you're saying, Daniel, is I can't change that to block ID? No, I can. I can change that to block ID.
No, so when the big difference here with the formatting is when you move to body, it's actually the display name. It's not the actual name of the column behind. It's different between these. So in body, it is what you're seeing on the form. So where it says block ID, it is that display name is what you're putting in here. So
Right.
That should be correct. Yep.
Thank you. Great. Phew. Hopefully I don't get another error, guys. Okay, so great. So now I'm saying that this is the field name that I want displayed up at the top. Now, the first section name is details according to this JSON that I copied, but I'm going to change that to block information. And in the block information section, I want the following fields to appear. So I want block status. So I change that to block underscore status. And then I also want year underscore dev. So exactly the way it appears on the left-hand side there. And we'll change that one to consultants. Okay.
Shafina, before you do anything, can you Control A here, please?
Control A.
Control C. So you're copying everything in there because I actually changed the header. And here's the thing. Title was actually the correct one. When you import your table from Excel, it uses the title column. Behind the scenes, it's called title, but what you called it, the label of it, the display is the block ID. So just changed it to title. So if you actually go and if you were to refresh this, it will now say block information 4, and then it will have the block ID. So
right.
I just wanted to make sure you didn't lose any of this information. So
okay, so I have copied it to my clipboard. So that's the first section, block information. The next one, I'll just give it like consultant, trying to rush through this now because I made such a big error. So we'll call this area underscore HA, and we'll okay. And maybe we'll just change this to status. Status. All right, cool. We're going to save that. And basically, I'm just going to cross out of that and try again. And now what we see here on our form is that we've got a section for block information. Remember, I had this particular field up at the top in my body, and then I have block information with the 3 columns. Were the 3 fields that I had changed in the JSON, and then I've got this area for consultant. And now I don't have a footer yet, but that's the next thing that we need to actually go in and change, is to change the footer. And in the footer, actually what I would want to do is move the comments and the attachments to the footer, and maybe add in a site contact or something that would provide more context around this particular field. But because we are running out of time, what I'm going to do now is skip over additional formatting, unless everyone really wants to do that. But what I want to do is actually demonstrate the power of having this list available to teams within Microsoft Teams, right? So, we talked a lot about the lists app, and we talked a lot about this, but how do you actually get your team to start using this, right? You've done all this work. But teams just, they don't want to change their habits. They go back to that Excel file. First of all, delete that Excel file so no one can access it. The second thing you do is you click on share. Now, people do have access to it because we did add it to the sales and marketing team, but I'm still going to share this with additional people who are outside of the team because I want them to come in and contribute information, right? So in a lot of organizations, if you've got external sharing accessible to you, you can invite your external consultants to also edit this as well. I'm now going to invite Adele. So Adele's going to have access to this. Great. And now I'm going to open up Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to click on Teams. So you'll see I'm in a Teams environment right now. I'm just going to actually refresh it just to refresh everything in Teams. I hope that doesn't like time out on me. Okay, great. So you'll see here now on the left-hand side, I'm in the sales and marketing team. I'm in the monthly reports channel. This is where I want everyone to be accessing this particular list that we created. So all I'm going to do is click on add a tab at the top. I'm going to add the lists app. So once your apps open up here, lists is going to show up. That exact list that we just created and formatted, we're going to hit save, is going to show up for me to add. So again, I'm going to add an existing list, and you'll see here that today's demo shows up. It's just so smart. Great. And Ashley has a really great question that I will answer, but now you'll see that my list is actually all right here in the formatting that I had available. You have access to flip through different views if you need. And now you can start to actually bring life to your list here. So why do you want to bring your list into Microsoft Teams? Because not only can you have commenting on list items, you can actually have conversations. So there's a difference, okay? So if I go back to the list, I'm going to show you here that you can actually add a comment to a list item, right? So I'm not in Microsoft Teams, I'm in lists. And when I click on the commenting, I can mention Adele here, and I can say, hey, update this right away. And I'm adding a comment, like, you know how you add comments in Office products like Word and PowerPoint, you can add those types of comments. But when you actually bring a list into Microsoft Teams, you have additional functionality. So I'm just going to quickly refresh this so you can see that there's a comment here on this list now. You'll see that the chat bubble is in purple. That means that there's a comment. So if I click on the comment, I can see the history of the comment when Adele actually comes in and does her work. But up at the top here, you have the option to click on comments, but now you have the option to click on conversation. You don't have this option available to you when you're doing this from the Microsoft List app. But this is really cool because when you click on the conversations tab, it actually opens up a conversation for you, which gets posted in the Teams conversation thread, which is also called posts. So sometimes you want to do this because you want people to be able to see this and get a notification about it directly in Microsoft Teams. So let's say I now ping Adele through Teams and I say, hey, Adele, can you please do this right away? And if I really want to add additional attention to it, I can format it. I can mark it as important. So she really knows this is important. She'll get instant notification in Teams. And then if she's not responding in Teams, she'll get an email notification. So I'm going to hit send. The other benefit to this is that now that I've posted this in the Teams chat, I'm going to show you where that shows up here. So in the monthly reports channel, if I click on posts, everyone in the team is going to see this. Everyone's going to know that I'm trying to get Adele's attention and that she's not responding. Oh, wait, she did respond. So because now it's posted in Teams, she's actually responded. But the benefit to this is that people who are just in and out of the Teams conversations, they're not in the list, they can click on this item here and it will actually take them directly to that list item. So it gives you more context around the conversation. So, you know, there's pros and cons to using the comments and the conversations, but you'll see here that people can follow up on the conversation thread and do a lot of that there. So I know we only have 8 minutes left and I did talk a lot. I apologize. And there's probably a lot of good, crazy conversations going on in the chat that I'm not following along. But, you know, Daniel, maybe I'll hand it over to you to answer some questions.
Yes. So how about we, I've been answering questions. What I also want to do though right now is to go ahead and share my screen so we have the resources up while we are answering those questions. So there we go. The first thing I'll highlight is that link there under resources, danielglenn.com/MN21. That's our post. And so if you go to the bottom of the resources, you'll see the link to these slides, but also to all the resources, including links to JSON examples and to the Microsoft List lookbook. So go to that link and you'll get all that information. Also, there's some links, and again, if you download the PowerPoint, you'll get these links and you don't need to type them out, but some links on how you can get some information about Microsoft List. So I'll leave those up. If there's any questions that maybe you want to come off mute or raise your hand, we can call on you. But if you have any questions now, and I'm answering questions in chat as well.
I just read Matt's question actually about what do you recommend for continuity as people leave the organization. That's a really, really great question and something a lot of organizations struggle with. But I think what we can do, Daniel, is actually take that question and continue that conversation on Twitter and actually get a lot of people involved in that, because it would be a really interesting conversation to see what others are doing. What do you think?
Indeed. Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a lot of things around here. It's when you talk about lists and continuity, well, it only really comes into play when you're talking about list in OneDrive, right? So if they've created a list in My Lists, then when they leave, what happens? And that would follow along with what happens to their files in OneDrive, right? So you need to plan for when that happens and what you're going to do with that data. Someone did ask put the links in chat. So I put the link there in chat so you can get to the slides as well. Okay. I will flip to our last slide, which is us reminding ourselves to say thank you for being here and for attending our session. I hope you enjoyed the demos, the presentation, the conversation. Again, make sure you go and download the slides. We'd like for you to have that as a resource for you. But we will hang out. We have 5 minutes before the next session starts, so I think we'll just hang out here answering questions in chat. And we look forward to the next session that will be coming up very shortly. But Shafina, you good?
I am good. I wanted to answer that one question about comments. So I don't believe that comments are exportable if you're using like the native comment functionality, right?
Yeah. So April did post in about getting, and that is something that was pretty recent, the solution on using the REST API, because remember, this is SharePoint in the background. So using Power Automate to use the REST API. Now, that is a paid connector. Just to let you know, if you're using that HTTP request to SharePoint, that is a paid connector in Power Automate, but that is a way that you can get to the comments if you really need to get to them to do something with them.
Oh, April said no, it's not.
April?
April.
So is it not the HTTP connector? Maybe April can explain that.
Yeah.
Sorry, not meaning to take a recession. Just the regular HTTP connector is premium.
Yep.
You can use the SharePoint HTTP action.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Included.
The action. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so and that's what all you need to call.
I didn't see. Yeah, I wasn't seeing what connector it was. I was assuming it was the HTTP connector. All right, fantastic.
Well,
all right, thank you, everybody.
I know we made it to a whole hour and a half. So
yes. Yeah, that's amazing. Good job, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, this is a great subject, and you guys did a great job. Appreciate your knowledge and sharing it with the group. So have a good rest of your day. And for everybody else, through the link in there, make sure you guys take do the survey. I do want to do my spin and see who wins the $25 gift card, and that would be Danielle Roman. You got that, so congratulations, Danielle. And we'll be reaching out to you and getting you that information. So, and thank you again. If you have any other questions, please feel free to throw them in there. They're going to be watching and answering those. But In a couple minutes here, we're going to be switching over to the next session, which, let me get my notes here. That will be David Warner and April Denham, which April was just literally commenting, and talking about more SharePoint lists and doing more around the formatting and doing more with that information that they started with, and just continuing that conversation. So lists is going to be the morning collaboration track, I guess. So excellent.